These are the final notes that were left by famous people. So before the author Virginia Woolf drowned herself in 1941, she left farewell letters to her husband and sister, with the last line reading, "I don't think two people could have been happier than we have been." Journalist Hunter Thompson left a note in which he said, 67, that is 17 years past 50, 17 more than I needed or wanted, boring, before taking his life at age 67. Kurt Cobain's final note read, "It's better to burn out than fade away," quoting Neil Young, while Vincent van Gogh wrote, "The sadness will last forever," before taking his life as written to his brother Theo. Avicii's last note in his rehab journal before his death in 2008 read, "The shedding of the soul is the last attachment before it restarts," and Anthony Bourdain's final text message to his assistant said, "Okay." Before boarding a plane that crashed in 1985, Ricky Nelson wrote, "Life is strange sometimes," making it one of the most eerie. And finally, the founder of Kodak, George Eastman, who made photography accessible to the masses, left this note stating, "To my friends, my work is done. Why wait?" before passing away from a self-inflicted wound. So rest in peace. These are jobs that require you to be single. So many K-pop artists have strict no dating clauses built into their contracts to maintain that parasocial fantasy that the idols are available for their fans. Catholic priests famously must take a vow of celibacy and can't engage in romantic relationships or marriage. This extends to the Pope as well. On that note, to even apply to be a Swiss Guard to defend the Pope, you must be an unmarried male and can only marry after having served 5 years. In the 1960s and 70s, flight attendants for airlines like Pan Am were required to be single, and if you got secretly married, they fired you immediately. Similarly, female teachers in the US and UK during the early 1900s were required to be single to preserve the culture of married women not having to work. Up until 2023, Miss Universe and Miss America took the title literally, as you couldn't be married, pregnant, or have ever given birth. And even being a geisha in Japan, you must be married to the art, so if you were to ever decide to get married, you have to retire early from the profession. And finally, certain deep cover intelligence operatives in the CIA aren't allowed to romantically attach themselves to people because of the major security risk that comes with sharing information. Pretty cool, right? These are things that aren't as old as you think. So the high five was invented less than 50 years ago in 1977 following a home run celebration during a baseball game. Perhaps crazier than this, though, is the word sibling wasn't coined until 1903, meaning before that it was just brothers and sisters constantly. Ciabatta bread isn't an old artisanal bread, as it was created in 1982, and even tiramisu is less than 60 years old, having been found in 1965. The knowledge that it's bad to drink while pregnant dropped in the 1970s and became widely known in the 1980s, meaning that a good amount of people over the age of 50 were born to parents who didn't understand the issues that came with it. Diamond engagement rings were also relatively recent, with campaigns to propose with one starting in the late 1940s, and if you're a fan of boxer briefs, they didn't hit the scene until the late 80s and popularized in the 1990s. Hallways and homes weren't widely used until the 1800s, and previously rooms would just open up into the next room. And finally, 401k retirement accounts didn't start until the late 1980s, which means that we've yet to see an entire generation actually retire with a 401k yet. That's crazy. I bought the same thing at 4 different places to see where it's the cheapest. So I purchased 5 standard grocery items, chips, Coke, Advil chocolate, and a water bottle, and I started at 7-Eleven where I found Lay's chips for $2.69, Hershey's for $2.39, Advil for $4.29, Coke for $2.89, and a Poland Spring for $1.49, marking the total at $13.75. From here I went to Walmart, and most of the items there were cheaper, with a bigger bag of Lay's chips going for $2.48, a Hershey's bar going for $1.82, 24 tablets of Advil, which was triple of that of 7-Eleven for only $3.83, which was insane, and then an Aquafina for $2.38, being slightly more, but overall $12.79, $1 cheaper. And so I decided to end things at the Dollar Tree, which in theory should be the cheapest spot, and here they served a similarly sized bag of Utz chips for $1.25, Coke for $2.25, Advil for $1.25, water for $1.25, and a snack-sized Hershey's bar for $1.25. So even accounting for the smaller portions, Dollar Tree was by far the most expensive, coming in anywhere from $8 to $9 for similar quantities. So now you know. These are actors who played multiple characters in the same movie. So Mike Myers plays Austin Powers' Dr. Evil Fat and Goldmember in the Austin Powers trilogy, even all appearing in the same scene multiple times, and Tyler Perry plays Medea, her brother Joe, and Uncle Heathrow in the Medea franchise, even arguing with himself on screen. Eddie Murphy in The Nutty Professor played 7 unique roles as Sherman Klump, Buddy Love, and every member of the Klump family, while Frank Morgan played the Wizard in The Wizard of Oz alongside Professor Marvel, the Gatekeeper, and even the Wizard's Guard. Many actors play their twin in movies and TV shows like Lindsay Lohan in The Parent Trap, Tom Hardy in Legend, Nicolas Cage in Adaptation, Adam Sandler in Jack and Jill, or Lupita Nyong'o in Us. Tatiana Maslany played 17 different characters in the TV series Orphan Black, for which she earned an Emmy, playing various clones, while Alec Guinness played 8 total characters in Kind Hearts and Coronets. Outside of Stewie, Brian, Peter, and Quagmire, Seth MacFarlane also voices about 40% of all recurring characters in Family Guy. And finally, James McAvoy plays 23 different personalities in Split, ranging from a young boy to a beast, all without using any CGI. Pretty cool, right? Here's celebrity crimes that remain unsolved. So the drive-by shootings of Tupac Shakur and Biggie Smalls in the mid-1990s are both officially unsolved, as there have been no convictions for the actual gunman, though for Tupac, a man named Dwayne Davis was arrested and indicted for ordering the hit on the rapper, at least partially solving the case. The actress Natalie Wood mysteriously drowned while on a yacht trip with her husband and Christopher Walken in 1981, and she was originally ruled to have accidentally drowned, but the case was later reclassified and reopened, with investigators continuing to search for more pieces to explain the situation to this day. The murder of rising actress Elizabeth Short in LA in 1947 remains unsolved and has hundreds of suspects and dozens of false confessions, but it famously hasn't been solved yet and is often referred to as the Black Dahlia case. A TV star named Bob Crane in the 70s was bludgeoned to death in his Arizona apartment, but the original suspect was later acquitted, plus they found cameras nearby, leaving it unsolved and mysterious. And finally, Bruce Lee's death remains a mystery, as he was found to have cerebral edema, but there was no toxicology report, so many theories think it could have been a poisoning, as it happened in someone else's apartment. That's crazy. Here are the countries that Americans can't visit. So there's currently a do not travel order to North Korea put in place by the Department of State in 2017 following the death of Otto Warmbier. In fact, nobody besides Russians can visit North Korea for tourism as of 2024. Americans are also barred from traveling to Cuba unless it's for a licensed family visit, official government business, journalism, or support of the Cuban people. There's many level 4 advisory countries as defined by the Department of State, which may prove difficult to travel to, like Iraq, Lebanon, and Niger for terrorism reasons, and other countries like Yemen, South Sudan, and Afghanistan for civil wars and ongoing internal conflicts. Asia is the continent with the most level 4 countries, with 8, including Myanmar and many Middle Eastern countries like Israel and Syria. Africa is a close second though, with 8, with countries like Sudan, Somalia, Mali, Libya, and Burkina Faso. Only 4 countries are advised against traveling to in the West, and these are Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine. And then finally, the only country in the Americas that has a level 4 advisory on it, which is Venezuela. So be safe. These are celebrities that disappeared from the public. So Richard Simmons, the previously high-profile fitness guru, went without a public appearance for 10 years leading up to his death, with even documentaries around his whereabouts surfacing. He chose to retreat, though, a completely private life in LA. This is similar to Bridget Fonda, who was a massive star in the 90s, but has had virtually 0 photos of her taken in over 25 years, as she also now prefers living as a civilian in LA. Gene Hackman, the 2-time Oscar winner, retired in 2004 and wasn't seen for 2 decades leading up to his death, only being caught from fan photos of him ordering food or taking a bike ride. Dave Chappelle disappeared in the middle of his career to go to South Africa at the height of his fame, though decided to have a second attempt at a career and has been successful since. Popular comedy actor Rick Moranis went over 20 years without a public appearance after his wife passed away in the late 1990s, though he's back to acting now, and Jack Nicholson rarely makes public appearances as he retired from acting to pursue a quiet life in LA. And finally, director Terrence Malick refuses to be photographed, doesn't do interviews, and goes decades at a time without public appearances, giving the public only a handful of photos of him over the last 40 years. That's crazy. Let's try to guess the character by their car. Okay, that's Family Guy. Who technically owns the vehicle, though? I guess Peter, right? He's the working man. Okay, cool. Whose is this? Just a pink sedan? I have no idea. It looks like the Family Guy car. It's not the Simpsons, right? The Simpsons have an orange car. I legit have no idea. Oh, it is the Simpsons? Homer's car? Okay. No idea. All these cars are looking the same now. It's like an army car, maybe like G.I. Joe. Chef from South Park? All right, there's no shot I'd guess that. I don't watch. All right, I mean, based on design alone, I'd say Peppa Pig. I didn't realize the pigs drove, though, so I'm not super confident in this one. There we go. Okay. All right, this is technically SpongeBob, but I don't think it's, like, canon his car, because wasn't it just, like, part of the movie, then they dropped it forever? Yep, nice. Fred Flintstone. This one's cake. Good. And then, I mean, I don't even have a guess. What is that? Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. All right. Not my best work. These are hobbies that are making a comeback. So pickleball started off as an old person's activity in the 1960s, but it's now the fastest growing sport in the US for 3 years now. Worldwide, paddle, a close cousin to pickleball that was popular in the 1970s, is actually the fastest growing sport, even more so than soccer. Pottery and ceramics making is ranked the top creative hobby of 2026 as it's the #1 grounding activity for young adults. And gardening participation is up over 300% over the past year as people want to grow their food and connect better with the natural world. Vinyl record revenue is the highest it's been since 1983, with many people opting to collect physical vinyl records of their favorite albums rather than the digital. And even board games are up by 20% as people cite digital fatigue and looking to connect with others through more traditional means. Film photography is making a comeback, with 70% of photography hobbyists being under the age of 35, and knitting and crocheting is making a similar comeback, with over 60% of the crafters being under the age of 35 as well. And finally, card collecting is expected to be a $100 billion industry over the next 10 years, reaching new heights despite its popularity peaking in the 90s. Pretty cool, right? Let's see if we can remember the color of these cartoon characters. Okay, Winnie the Pooh's fur. I mean, I love Winnie the Pooh. Oh, that's pretty much it. I think that's spot on. Okay, 8.89. That's pretty good. Homer Simpson's skin. All right, he's also yellow. He's probably a bit brighter, though, right? Okay, that's gotta be it. I've watched The Simpsons enough. Well, only like 5 times, but really? Okay, 8.96, getting better slightly. SpongeBob, okay, he's yellow. Why is everybody yellow? It's gotta be some grand conspiracy. All right, I feel like he's brighter than that though. Yeah, that's spot on. 8.67, okay, so he's even brighter than that. Okay, what color is Tom? That's too dark. He's not that dark. That looks right. I feel like that's gotta be a 9. Okay, lighter than that, fine. Jake the dog, ugh. I like hardly have watched Adventure Time. I think he's yellow though, right? I don't know how bright he is. Why is everyone's literally yellow? Okay, that's pretty spot on. Maybe a little bit brighter. All right. Not bad. Okay, so Mickey Mouse's shorts are red. Yes, that's it. Yes. These are animals that are surprisingly deadly. So snails are responsible for over 200,000 deaths every year since they carry a parasitic worm that contaminates water and is fatal to humans. Dogs too actually kill about 35,000 people per year, mainly from bites that result in rabies. Either through the transmission of Lyme's disease or from all the accidents caused, deer can technically be quite deadly, killing hundreds of humans per year. Technically though, hippos are actually the deadliest large land mammals, killing roughly 500 people per year thanks to their high aggression levels. The slow loris is the only venomous primate that has glands on its elbow that produces a toxin that can cause flesh-rotting infections in humans. Platypuses also actually have venomous spurs on their feet that can't kill but will cause excruciating pain in humans as well that lasts for weeks. Other animals that accrue hundreds of human kills per year include elephants and cows, both usually from trampling. Interestingly though, moose are surprisingly one of the deadliest by rate, as 10% of collisions with moose result in fatalities for the driver. And finally, mosquitoes are the deadliest animal on Earth by far, killing more than 1 million humans every year thanks to diseases like malaria and Zika that they carry. Nobody likes mosquitoes. These are movie scenes that led to lawsuits. So in The Hangover Part 2, after Stu got a facial tattoo similar to Mike Tyson's, the movie studio was sued by Mike Tyson's tattoo artist for copyright infringement on the design. They ended up settling for an undisclosed amount. In a scene from a Family Guy episode from 2006, Carol Burnett sued the show for $2 million for copyright infringement and claimed that the scene tarnished her image, but the judge dismissed the case because it was protected under parody law under the First Amendment. In Back to the Future Part 2, the director had an actor wear prosthetics in a scene to look like the original actor who played George McFly, who didn't return for the sequel. However, the original actor ended up suing the studio for unauthorized use of his likeness, and he actually won. In Borat, during this scene when Borat was taking an etiquette lesson, he was sued by the etiquette coach for fraud and deception as she was operating under false pretenses, but the judge ended up dismissing it because she signed a creative release form prior to shooting. And finally, in the 1997 movie The Devil's Advocate with Keanu Reeves, the studio was sued for using a copyright-protected sculpture in this scene, and they ended up having to edit it out of 475,000 VHS tapes. That's crazy. These are cultures that are disappearing. So the country of Kiribati is expected to be uninhabitable within a few decades because of rising sea levels. The government has even already purchased land in Fiji for when this inevitably happens. Inuits in the Arctic are also disappearing because of melting ice, which is displacing their camps, destroying traditional cultural methods, and even sidelining their language. The Ainu people in Japan are becoming extinct as they were pressured to assimilate, and there's only a few fluent speakers of the language left. This is similar to the Ayapaneco of Mexico, which at one point only had 2 fluent speakers left of their language. Tibetans in China are slowly being replaced with Han Chinese settlers who have overtaken political power and imposed their cultural practice on the native Tibetans. And the Maasai people of Kenya that are traditionally semi-nomadic are disappearing as land restrictions and urbanization emerges. And this has become the fate of dozens of cultures, and it's thought actually that every 2 weeks a language dies as we move towards globalization. In fact, by 2100, nearly half of the languages in the world will be extinct, and in another 100 years after that, nearly all languages and cultures are projected to converge into one as universal language and global connectivity occurs. That's crazy. These are the top pickup lines according to science. So starting off with the worst pickup lines, and any that comment on a specific body part or use pet names like gorgeous lower the response rate by over 80%. Equally bad is self-pity openers like I know you're probably too good for me, but I thought I'd try anyways. In terms of the best openers, and anything posing a playful challenge is strong, like I think I can beat you in mini golf, which also opens the door for a date opportunity. Equally strong is making a name-specific pun. So for instance, if her name is Amy, you want to say, wow, you look amazing. Doing this apparently has a 30% higher chance of conversion. Posing controversial yet lighthearted questions like does pineapple belong on pizza apparently works well because it baits engagement and psychologically feels like the person knows you because they're opening up quickly about their opinions. If you're looking at somebody's photos, finding very small details in one of their photos can lend you a 50% higher chance of starting a conversation, but by far the number one pickup line that somebody can use is I'd love to get to know you, my name is Sam, what's your name, because of how direct it is, which signals high social capital and minimizes cognitive load. So now you know. I know everything about you. So YouTube gives me my data on my audience, so every year I like to see what you guys are looking like. So in terms of location, 60% of you guys are based in the United States, with 8% in the UK and 5% in Canada, rounded out by 3% in Australia and India each. Hello? In terms of gender, 62% of you guys are male and 37% are female, about 1% specified something else. In terms of of age, 33% of yous are 25 to 34, 25% are 35 to 44. After this, 19% is 18 to 24. 67% of you guys aren't subscribed, so you can click there. And 67% of you guys also primarily watch me on the TV. You guys are primarily online during the weekends around 1 p.m. and around 50% of you guys are regular viewers, so welcome back. The most popular channels you guys watch are Zach D Films, Mapples, and John Casterline. The most popular long-form videos you guys have watched in the last 7 days was Jack Pembroke's I Stealth Camped Outside of North Korea. Good video. And the most popular short was How Was Ice Cream Made Before Freezers by Zach D Films. Pretty cool. Let me know if this sounds like you. These are humans who are technically perfect. So in 2014, a computational biologist used genome data to figure out which group of people has the most optimal DNA sequencing in the world, and the answer was Puerto Rican women, as they have strong ethnic mixing and buffer against recessive diseases. Additionally, a study was conducted on 500,000 people to find genetic superheroes, and 13 people were found to be resistant to effectively all modern-day diseases, meaning that they'd probabilistically only die from poor lifestyle. In terms of perfect vision, a woman named Veronica Sider has 22 vision, which is 20 times better than the average human, letting her see details from over a mile away. And for perfect metabolism, a man named Liam Hoekstra requires no additional exercise to maintain his physique, as his body naturally builds muscle so long as he's eating. The Chamani tribe of the Amazon have the lowest level of heart disease ever recorded by science, meaning they have perfect cardiovascular health and are resistant to heart disease and strokes thanks to an APO gene variant. And finally, less than 50 people in the world have golden blood, which is a universal donor and can be used to save quite literally anybody. Pretty cool, right? Here are diseases that no longer exist. So smallpox was officially eradicated in 1980, making it the first and only human disease that is completely wiped out. It killed 300 million people in the 1900s, but thanks to vaccinations, it now only exists in labs in the US and Russia. Guinea worm disease is expected to officially be the second human disease ever eradicated, as there's only 10 human cases left in the world, while in the 1980s there was millions of cases per year. Polio is down 99.9% since 1988, and wild polio only remains in 2 countries. At this point, it's only a matter of time before it's completely solved for. Hepatitis C is the only chronic viral illness that we can now completely cure with a short course of oral medication, solving over 95% of cases. It's not completely eradicated, but it's medically solved. Acute lymphoblastic leukemia also has had great development, as the 5-year survival rate for the once fatal cancer is now over 90% for children. And finally, for about 26 years, the US was measles free, but recently it's made a comeback thanks to a slippage in vaccination rates that have caused it to spread to now thousands again. Otherwise though, pretty cool. These are the most disturbing world records. So the world record for the most people killed by a serial killer belongs to Luis Garavito of Colombia, who murdered over 300 children and died in prison in 2023. Technically though, the person with the most kills is Soviet executioner Vasily Blokin, who killed over 7,000 Polish officers in 28 nights during the Katyn massacre. The deadliest medical error in history was in Lubeck, Germany, when 251 infants were accidentally injected with live tuberculosis instead of the vaccine, killing over a third. And the deadliest natural disaster in history belongs to the 1931 China floods, which killed 4 million people from drowning, starvation, and disease. The highest BAC ever recorded in somebody was a Polish man at 1.48%, which is 4 times over the lethal dose, though he didn't actually die from the alcohol poisoning. Kobayashi set the record for the most cow brains eaten with 17.7 pounds in just 15 minutes, while Ken Edwards has the record for the most cockroaches eaten with 36 eaten in 1 minute. And finally, the largest collection of human skulls is in the catacombs of Paris, with more than 6 million people in the underground ossuary. Pretty cool, right? Here are the most controversial songs in history. So Like a Prayer by Madonna had a music video featuring burning crosses, which caused a global uproar and had her dropped from Pepsi. Similarly, Montero by Lil Nas X featured a depiction of Lil Nas X as the devil, which resulted in controversy that pushed him from making music. Strange Fruit by Billie Holiday was a protest against lynching that was refused to be played by radio stations because it was seen as a threat to the social order. Similarly, God Save the Queen by the Sex Pistols was banned in the UK and suppressed from charting properly because it compared the monarchy to a fascist regime. Cop Killer by Ice-T heavily depicts violence against police and was publicly condemned by even President Bush and was removed from the album because of that. Lola by the Kinks was controversial because it depicted a non-normative relationship and was actually banned in some places because it mentioned the word Coca-Cola. The lead singer actually had to re-record the line to Cherry Cola in order to get it on air. And finally, a song called Me So Horny was so controversial that it led to a landmark legal battle over the First Amendment, as people wanted record store owners arrested for even selling it due to its obscene lyrics. Pretty cool, right? These are companies that almost disappeared. So in 1996, Marvel actually filed for bankruptcy and had to sell the rights to Spider-Man and X-Men just to keep the lights on. Eventually though, they took a loan out to make Iron Man, and it ended up turning into the most successful movie franchise of all time, now owned by Disney. Lego was losing nearly $1 million a day in 2003 from focusing on other random business lines, but after getting a new CEO, they turned the shop around and now is the world's most profitable toy company. FedEx was hours away from shutting down in the early 70s with only $5,000 in the corporate bank account, but the founder gambled out on blackjack and turned into $27,000 and used that to stay alive a few more weeks to secure funding for $11 million. Domino's was actually voted the worst tasting pizza in America in 2009, and instead of marketing against it, they admitted that their pizza was bad and redesigned it publicly publicly, which now led to them being one of the most successful stocks of the past 15 years. And finally, in 1997, Apple was 90 days away from bankruptcy because of competition from Microsoft, but they famously took a loan from them and focused solely on Macs, leading them to now being worth $4 trillion today. Pretty cool, right? I tried every type of movie theater, starting with a 4DX theater that has multi-sensory effects so they can feel things like wind and water, as well as seat movement for whenever there's an intense scene. It was pretty distracting for the actual movie, but overall a pretty fun one-time experience. After this, I tried a dine-in theater called iPick, in which I had these comfortable seats, a cozy blanket, and servers coming around serving me gourmet food like a bison burger and even lobster rolls. And the food and drinks were great, so a really fun, unique experience. After this, I tried an AMC, which is the country's largest movie theater chain. And while they had some cool themed food props, the popcorn wasn't that good, the theater itself was nothing special, and it was just generally a bit dirty all around. From here, I tried a Cinemark theater, and this was one of my favorites, offering really good food like these bacon cheese fries, good popcorn, it was clean, fairly cheap, and the theater was just really nice inside of there. I hit a private theater for $1,000, and that was good, but obviously not something worth regularly doing. And then I ended things with my home theater, which is just my living room, and I have to say it continues to be my favorite for daily viewing because it's comfy, clean, and not to mention free. I do love theaters though, and I think movies are better there. These are fast food ideas that completely failed. So Burger King experimented with waiter service in the 1990s, offering popcorn as appetizers and steak sandwiches as entrees, but customers immediately rejected it as they preferred speed over service. Wendy's tried to become a buffet around this time by creating a super bar with a salad station, a taco station, and a pasta station, but also nobody wanted this. McDonald's has historically flopped on dozens of food items like the Arch Deluxe, which was an adult burger, adding Dijon mayo and peppered bacon atop the patty, and the Hula Burger, which was literally just a pineapple slice topped with cheese on a bun. Taco Bell made a seafood salad in the 1980s that had shrimp, whitefish, and snow crab to compete with the Filet-O-Fish, but customers were rightfully scared of having room temperature seafood. Taco Bell also even offered at one point their own burgers called Bell Beefers, which was just ground beef on a hamburger bun, but nobody was going to Taco Bell for burgers. And finally, McDonald's had an entire Italian menu in the 1980s with items like McLasagna, McSpaghetti, and even McPizza, but the long wait times made it nearly impossible to properly make them. Pretty cool, right? I put my YouTube channel on every device at the Apple Store to see if anybody would notice. So I walked into the Apple Store and started with the new iPhones, but I ran into an immediate issue because none of the phones had YouTube pre-downloaded, and so instead I had to manually go into Safari and type in my channel URL to get it up. Afterwards, I closed out Safari and moved on to the next, and repeated this over and over and over again on about 20 different phones until I hit pretty much all of them, including the earlier models. Nobody caught on yet though, and so I moved on to the iPads, putting my channel up there with nobody realizing, and then headed over to the MacBooks as well, which were starting to get a bit more obvious, but we were still in the clear. Now, some devices like the Apple Watch were impossible to do it on because they weren't YouTube compatible, and I ran into the same issue with their TV as it didn't allow me to download YouTube. I even thought of putting it on the Vision Pro, but unfortunately they didn't allow people to test them. And so the last devices I had to put it on were the desktops, which were the largest screens, so I was sure the journey was going to end here, but luckily I was seamlessly able to place them on there, completing basically every device in the store. So if you happen to see my YouTube channel on one of the 50 devices in the Apple Store, make sure to subscribe. These are celebrities who got famous when they were older. So the average age of initial fame is around 23, including social media celebrities, though many celebrities achieved status into their 40s and beyond, like Samuel L. Jackson, who broke out in Jungle Fever at 42, Steve Carell, who broke out from 40-Year-Old Virgin at 43, and Morgan Freeman, who broke out in Street Smart when he was 48. Danny Trejo didn't start acting until his mid-40s when he appeared in Runaway Train, and Regis Philbin, who at one point held the record for the most hours on camera, wasn't even nationally acclaimed until he was nearly 50. Alan Rickman was 42 when he broke out in Die Hard, then landing his iconic role afterwards as Snape, and Kathy Bates was 43 when she starred in Misery, for which she actually won an Academy Award. Christoph Waltz was 53 when he was featured in Inglourious Basterds, his first Hollywood film, and he ended up winning an Oscar as well, and Viola Davis was 43 when she made her splash in the movie Doubt, for which she actually earned an Oscar nomination. Susan Boyle was 47 when she had her famous Britain's Got Talent audition that gave her global fame, and finally, Colonel Sanders was in his late 60s when he franchised KFC, becoming a global icon. It's never too late. Let's try to guess the store by its map. Oh wow, that is a lot of dots. For a store too, not even like a fast food restaurant. I think this just has to be Dollar General, right? I just learned how massive they are with like 20,000 locations somehow. Yep, cool. Yeah, exactly. Oh, this is a lot too. Maybe Target or Walmart. It's red, so probably Target feels right. Oh, CVS. Yeah, I forgot how prominent drugstores are. Walgreens too. What could this be? Nothing in the Northeast? How am I going to get this? Oh, Publix, right? Is that what it's called? The grocer? Kroger. Okay, I think that's a grocer as well. I don't know anything about them. Is this Publix? No, it can't be because they don't have those in the Northeast. What is this? I have no idea. I guess Publix, though. Safeway. Okay, I don't really know them. And then, I mean, I don't know if it's cheating because it's blue, but I'm guessing Walmart. It looks like it in any case. Cool. All right, there we go. Let's try to guess the country by its AI-generated people. All right, this has to be Canada. If it's not Americans, then it should just be Canada, right? I feel like the beard gives it away. No, the United Kingdom. Okay. I don't know a ton of Brits with beards, right? Oh, this is interesting. Probably like Colombian, somewhere in like South America. Oh, probably Brazil, I'd say, right? Brazil, cool. Japan, right? I feel like that girl looks Japanese. Okay. I thought it could be possibly a curveball. This one's tough. That skin tone feels like Middle Eastern. Let's try like Lebanese or Israeli or something. Oh, Mexican. Okay, I can see that. Is that the same exact girl from the last picture? All right, so if this is Mexican and this is like what, like Belize or Guatemalan? How is that representative of a French person? It's literally the same woman as Mexico. All right, and then, okay, this has to be Canada, right? I'm waiting on them. That guy looks pretty Canadian, and they're fair skin. Okay, cool. All right, not terrible. I asked every drive-thru for their least favorite fast food item. So at Starbucks, the employees said their new iced banana cream protein matcha was pretty gross, but I'm a fan of protein in drinks, and this was surprisingly one of the better drinks I've had at Starbucks, so I can't agree with that. At Dunkin', the employees said their worst donut was the blueberry glazed donut, which is just a plain donut with blueberries inside, and I tried it, and while it wasn't the best donut there, it certainly feels overhated. At Taco Bell, the employee noted that the Cantina chicken taco is their least favorite food, mainly because of the way they have to make it and prepare it, but that thing could take 30 minutes to make, and I'd order it every time, because this was actually elite level. The Burger King drive-thru workers said they weren't a fan of the chicken fries, which I thought was crazy because those things are literally the best things at Burger King, so I happily ate all of those. At Wendy's, the drive-thru worker said the baked potato was his least favorite because of how random it was. And I've had this before, so I ordered that, took a bite into it, and it was piping hot, but it did taste pretty solid. And then I ended things at Subway where the employee told me their least favorite item was pizza, which I didn't even know that they had. But I have to say, after giving it an honest try, I would give it a 7 out of 10, and I think Subway is definitely in the pizza game officially. Pretty cool. I visited a town that banned fast food. So there's a town in New Jersey that has a local ordinance in place banning fast food restaurants and drive-thrus from propping up in order to keep traffic and noise pollution at a minimum. And I wanted to review the extent of this ban, and so I went down there and I ordered McDonald's and Taco Bell from DoorDash to be delivered to me in front of their police station, but nobody seemed to care. And I even did a drive-by fast food deal in which I was actively dealing fast food within the city limits, but I've also yet to be prosecuted. Now, the town interestingly has an active Dunkin' in it because there was a loophole in the early 2000s that allowed for a certain fast food restaurant to apply, and they somehow got approved before the loophole was closed in 2022, meaning there's a lone Dunkin' in town that is technically illegal by today's standard. And interestingly, by the Google reviews, it's actually the worst rated restaurant or store in town, likely from residents review bombing it to get rid of it, but actually it was pretty decent overall, and I even saw a few residents in there. And so, while the town definitely does shun fast food, they did have some fast food branded products in their store, and actually had an ice cream truck driving around, which, in my opinion, is the definition of fast food. Really nice town though, but definitely something fishy happening. These are crazy things that we found in space. So astronomers discovered an exoplanet called 55 Cancri E, which is twice Earth's size and made of mostly carbon, which means it's a planet made of diamonds, while another exoplanet named HD 189733b has 4,000 mile per hour winds that whip shards of glass sideways across the skies constantly. Astronomers found a gigantic water cloud 12 billion light years away that holds 140 trillion times more water than in Earth's oceans, and they also found an alcohol cloud that's large enough to produce 400 trillion pints of beer. We recently discovered a zombie star that refuses to die despite exploding multiple times, defying what we know about physics. Also strange to observe is on Saturn's North Pole, which has a perfect hexagonal storm thousands of miles wide, spinning for decades straight with endless energy. NASA discovered a hand-shaped nebula stretching across 150 light years that looks like the hand of God extending across galaxies. And finally, there was a void discovered called the Great Nothing that should by all accounts and physical estimations have over 2,000 galaxies in it, but it only has 60, making it statistically impossible to exist. Pretty cool, right? These are diseases that only exist in some countries. So Koro is an anxiety involving the sudden intense fear that one's genitals are retracting to their body and will cause death, and it's actually only observed in parts of southern China, Southeast Asia, India, and Africa. The reasons are unclear. Amok is a dissociative condition characterized by sudden and violent outbursts of rage that's only found in Malaysia, Indonesia, and the Philippines. It's typically tied to male honor and actually where the phrase running amok comes from. Kuro is a disease that's spread through cannibalism of deceased relatives in certain parts of Papua New Guinea that obviously causes severe symptoms like tremors, loss of coordination, and even death. Nodding syndrome is specific to South Sudan, Uganda, and Tanzania, and it's a seizure disorder involving head nodding episodes in children, and nobody has a clue why. Piblocto is a frenzy of shouting, stripping off your clothes, then running into the snow, followed by amnesia that's observed only in communities in Greenland, Canada, and Alaska. This is potentially due to vitamin A toxicity. And finally, pica-geophagy is somewhat rampant in parts of Africa, and it involves eating clay or soil out of necessity, likely because of iron deficiencies. So now you know. These are predictions from 100 years ago, so let's see what actually came true. So by 2025, about 30% of people believe we would have flying cars and personal aircraft for families, and another 30% thought we'd have conveyor streets or moving sidewalks in major cities, similar to the walking accelerators at airports. 50% of people believe that by 2025, meals would come in pill form, as this was pushed by major newspapers at the time as something inevitably coming down the pipeline for weight loss management. Robot maids or some sort of automated housekeeping were expected by about 40% of futurists, and wireless news was also predicted by that same cohort to revolutionize the paper reliance. 2-hour workdays or complete machine automation was expected by many by 2025. As it was a complete end to poverty and war thanks to post-World War I optimism. Life expectancy was expected to increase to 120 in line with compounding growth in medicine, and artificial organs were discussed as a reasonable medical breakthrough by the year 2025. And finally, the most common prediction by people, though, was that in 2025, we'd have a universal language that allows anybody to speak to one another. Not bad for 100 years ago. Who is the best-looking YouTuber according to AI? Starting off with Mr. Beast, which I used this picture for AI, and it gave him a 7.5 out of 10, with the weakest score going to his smile and teeth, which I think he actually got veneers recently, so it probably buffed him a bit. Next up was Speed, so I used this picture, and AI notably liked his smile and presence a lot and gave him an 8 out of 10. Ryan Trahan was next, so I used this picture of him, and again, AI liked his smile a lot, and so they ranked him actually slightly higher than Speed at an 8.2. Next up was Brent Rivera, and AI actually gave him an 8.4, leading the pack at this point because of his sharp facial structure and strong hair. Moving on, and Logan Paul was next, and I fed the AI this picture of him, and he got an 8.6 according to AI for his tall face and jawline combined with his friendly smile. Next up was Kai Cenat, and at this point, he had scored the highest out of anybody with an 8.8 out of 10 because of his smile, facial structure, and overall presence. But the best looking YouTuber, after going through 30 different ones according to AI, was actually Nick DiGiovanni, who was given a 9 out of 10 on the conventional attractiveness scale because of his symmetry, bone structure, and polished grooming. Good job, Nick.
কি হইছে বলতো? আর বলিস না, তোরে যে বুকিং দিছে সে তখন আমার পিছনে লাগছে।
দিশান ও দরজা লাগা দিছে ও দরজা লাগা দিছে কই যায় কই যা
আমরা তো বিয়েই দিয়ে দিবে বাসা থেকে।
মাম্মা লাভ স্টোরি তো শুরু করে দিলা ভালো 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 মালটারে কি পড়ানো যায়
তুই একটা কাম কর আজকে থেকে আমি তোমার তুমি আমার ব্যাস ডিসিশন ফাইনাল বুকিং দিয়ে রাখলাম ঠিক আছে কি খবর তোমাদের কেমন আছো তোমরা সবাই ভালো তো না তুমি জানো তোমার কালকে তো কতবার বলছি
হ্যালো আসসালামু আলাইকুম।
ওয়ালাইকুম আসসালাম
কি রে এদাই তুই মানা করতেছি
কিছু না কিছু
ভাবি আপনি জানেন আমি একবার অসুস্থ হয়ে গেছিলাম ও আমাকে রক্ত দেয়নি আর আজকে আপনাকে রক্ত দিয়ে চিঠি লিখছে
কালকে সারা রাত তোমার আমি কল দিচ্ছি
সারা রাত? তাহলে আপনি শুনুন আপনার ভালোবাসার মানুষের অতীত বর্তমান। পাগল কোন একদম ঠিক হয় না, ওনার ব্যথা লাগে নাই?
ব্যথা তো বেশি তুই
তুহিনের ব্যথা লাগছে মানে?
বন্ধু তুই চিন্তা করিস না রে ভাবির মন ঠিকই গলে যাবে
ভাবির মন তো ঘুরবে কিন্তু
আরে না না না
সম্ভব না গাড়ি ঘুরা তো
হঠাৎ আমার বাসার নিচে কোনো জরুরি দরকার?
তুমি কি আজকে কোচিং এ যাও নাই সুন্দর মতো যাবি ভাবির নামটা জিজ্ঞাসি আর শুন ভালো মতো কথা কবে ভাবি লাগে খালি থাপড় আর চাপাবাজি এই বাদে আর কিছু পাছস বুকিং মানে বুকিং তুমি আমার আমি তোমার বুকিং দিয়ে দিছি ফাইনাল
আমাকে বুকিং দিছে মানে আমাকে কে বুকিং দিছে দোস্ত? তোর যে আশিক আছে না এখন তো আমার পিছনে লাগছে। আমার তো অনেক ভয় লাগতেছে দোস্ত, এই যে আস্তে আস্তে সব মানুষ জানবে, তারপর আমার ফ্যামিলিকেও জানাই দিবে। আর আমার
এন্ড বেস্ট অফ লাক ফর ডক্টরশিপ আমি দোয়া করি তুমি যেন একজন ভালো ডক্টর হও
আমার কাছে জিনের বাচ্চার নাম্বার আছে জিনের বাচ্চা
চাস নাকি ইটিস পিটিস করতে চাস
কামিজ। হ্যালো বন্ধু,
আমার রোদে দিছস?
এই তো দিছি তো।
ঠিক মতো রোদে দিছস?
কি শুনতে চান? আমি আপনাকে ভালোবাসি।
ফোন দিয়ে যেতেছি ফোনই ধরো না, তোমার ফোন ধরার কোনো নামই নাই, কোনো কথা, তোমার ফোন ধরো না কেন?
এবারে এক্সামের প্রিপারেশন কিরকম তোদের? আমি তো খুবই এক্সাইটেড, কারণ আমার প্রিপারেশন খুবই ভালো।
জিসান দরজা খোল।
সুন্দর মতো যাবি, ভাবির নামটা জিজ্ঞাবি। আর শোন, ভালো মতো কথা কবে, ভাবি লাগে। খালি ফাপড় আর চাপাবাজি, ফাপড় আর চাপাবাজি, এই বাদে আর কিছু পাচ্ছস? বুকিং মানে বুকিং, তুমি আমার আমি তোমার, বুকিং দিয়ে দিছি ফাইনাল।
আমাকে বুকিং দিছে মানে আমাকে কে বুকিং দিছে দোস্ত? তোর যে আশিক আছে না, এখন তো আমার পিছনে লাগছে।
এই এই দুলাভাই সামনে থাকলে যে সালাম দিতে হয়, আপনি শিখাই নাই তোরা? কেমন আছো তুমি?
ভালো।
আমাকে জিজ্ঞেস করবো না?
রক্তটা দিবি তুই।
আমি কেন রক্ত দেবো? প্রেম খরচ তুই, রক্ত।
আমার বন্ধু জিসান আপনাকে অনেক ভালোবাসে ভাবি। আপনার ওর রক্ত যাওয়াটা বিধা হতে দিবেন না ভাবি।
These are active lawsuits that you can technically join. So if you were a California resident and paid for at least one renewal of a Google Play subscription between 2014 and 2019, you can receive a share of the upcoming settlement for that. California residents could also join a Grubhub lawsuit, which will give you $10 if you felt misled by their delivery fees. Amazon agreed to a massive $2.5 billion settlement following allegations around users who were deceptively pushed into Prime memberships and couldn't cancel, so cash outs could be coming for that. While Google agreed to a $135 million settlement for qualifying Android users since they admitted to secretly using their data without permission. If you're an older person who uses Tinder Plus or Gold, Tinder just announced a $60.5 million settlement for charging older users more money for premium features. And if you bought Sealy Bedding advertised at a 1250 thread count, you can earn up to $40 without a receipt for their deceptive marketing. If you own a 2014 through 2019 Dodge Ram 1500, you can reach up to $3,500 for an engineering blunder that messed with their emissions. And finally, Bell Ambulance had a data breach that, if it has caused you direct harm in some way, you could get up to $5,000 for losses. That's crazy.